Hello everybody! Today's video is quite different to everyday's videos. I don't have any tutorial for you. I have a very dear guest here with me who most of you know and love and admire. And if you are a soap maker, you certainly have one of her books in your stash and on your shelves. Melinda Coss doesn't need any introduction. She is the best-selling author of 31 books, has made several businesses from the scratch, and has made the soap making, handmade soap making a business before it was so sexy like today. And her soaps have been sold at retailers like Harrods or every decent supermarket and drugstore in the UK. Now, instead of enjoying her retirement, she is mentoring and tutoring other entrepreneurs and learning them how to take their journey from a DIYer and hobbyist to a real entrepreneur. Melinda, thank you for being here. I am so honored that you dedicate this time to us and to me.
It's lovely to be here. Thanks for inviting me.
Thank you. So, my first question, I am quite thrilled about this book. I think this is your latest book, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes, it was a bit of COVID madness.
It is amazing. I think I read it in one go. I couldn't put it down. It is really amazing. And everybody, if you are at my age or even a little bit younger, around the verge of 45 upwards, please go and purchase this book and read it. You will love it. How many women has written to you and told you that this book has changed their lives?
Well, it's interesting because it's basically about the fact that we go through these journeys in our lives and we do a million things and we don't actually credit ourselves with them. So even if you're bringing up a family and you're dealing with teenagers and whatever, every journey that you go on in your life should be shared and has value. Every win that you have. And these days, because of the internet, what people don't realize is that they can make money out of it. So, I mean, for me, I've built these businesses. They were craft businesses, creative businesses. I was very, very hands-on in them. And it took me till I was, maybe 50 to realize that what I'd actually learned on those journeys, building those businesses, was worth more than the businesses themselves. I mean, that's the world that we're living in. So that book kind of encourages people. I hear people struggling for money, and I don't understand it because the tools that we have, free tools that we have, that will enable us to just sell our knowledge, are amazing. So that's what the book is about. And it's a bit of humor. It was a bit of COVID madness for me.
That's absolutely interesting and fascinating. I really couldn't put it down. It is your humor, exactly the way you write. It is fascinating, and I was thrilled by the fact that you wrote during your teenage years to the author of Famous Five and asked her to give you a
Yeah, because I could write books better than she could.
I'm sure you could.
There was a Yiddish term that I didn't include in the book, which is called chutzpah, and it means chic. It means you've got a real nerve doing that. Chutzpah.
That's true. Yeah. You have a real nerve. Yeah, that's true. But it's really amazing. So let's come back to what could be more interesting or more kind of learning relevant for our audience. Exactly. You have had businesses in knitting and have several books about knitting as well as soap making. Is there a logic relationship between the two?
Yes, there is. Yes, there is. So I found myself at 24 with 3 under 2-year-olds and no money and no education. I left school at 14. And I thought, I've got to earn some money. I've got to keep this lot. And I wrote a list, and on that list it said that I could, what could I do? So I could write letters and I could knit. And those were the two things. So I decided to start. My son actually came home with an idea for a jumper with a squeaker in it. And I thought this was a brilliant idea. How could I do it? And I ran around markets finding people, because I couldn't even really knit very well then, finding people that could knit. And we came up with this little squeaky jumper with a squeaker in it, and a mouse on the front, and you teddy bear, pressed it, squeak. And I made some samples and sent them off to the national newspapers. And the Daily Express in the UK, I don't even know if it's still going, but they did a double-page spread offering these jumpers for sale. So suddenly I had a knitwear business. And I ran around and found out workers, and then I took over a shop. It's a long story, but the point is, so I started writing knitting books, and then I was asked to write books on embroidery, and I was in Australia on holiday, and I was in a market, and I suddenly saw this stand selling handmade soaps, and I had what I call a ding moment. It was, my God, who's doing this? Why don't I see this in Europe? What's going on? So I came home and I thought, I'll write a book about it. So I knew nothing about soap making at that time, nor did anybody else, in fairness. It was quite big in America. And I realized that in the States, they had a lot of women at home making soap and selling it, because there were no great restrictive laws like there are, no legislation. So I taught myself to make it, and I wrote a book about it, and the book went mad. That was the book you held up. And I think why it interested me was that knitting was very much about women at home, stuck like I was with a traditional craft, and turning that knowledge that you had into a business. And I thought actually they could do exactly the same thing with soap. As I say, I didn't realize the laws that were involved at that time, but that's kind of what drove me. So I've always been interested in enabling people. And the really, Your Age is Your Business, that book is like a third stage of that. That's just about selling information. But I've always been interested in giving people, a way to make a living, and especially women.
But we're talking about the pre-internet and pre-Google time. That those times you had to really go and meet somebody face to face to make a deal or anything, or go and search for the articles in the library and hope that you can get a book and the page that you want is not torn off. And
yes, absolutely. I think the internet had just started. It was dial-up. At that time, so I was able to...
I can remember with the modem.
And I did manage to contact someone in Scotland, the wilds of Scotland, and someone in America who gave me some information. And then I contacted all the soap manufacturers, and they were very generous with their help. And it's such a lovely industry, and skincare as well, because people... actually craft is not quite like that. Knitting certainly isn't, but people are very generous with and sharing. And that's an interesting point, because I think when people are starting brands these days, I know a lot of people that come to me are incredibly possessive about their knowledge, their resources, their recipes. And actually, the world's turned on its head, because the more you put out, the more you get back. I'm
Absolutely. Yeah.
totally convinced of that.
Absolutely, yeah. There's no fear about sharing a recipe, or because
No.
anybody, it's like a cooking recipe. Anybody has her personal touch, and if 10 people bake the same cake or make the same dish, everybody else is unique in its own. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's true. So, about the cosmetic industry and our artisanal cosmetic, or what we call it, do you think that the market is saturated now, or is there any help for the newcomers?
Well, the market, I mean, the data says it all. You know, the market is growing year on and year on. But I think what has changed is that your point of entry, if you want to make money out of it, your point of entry means that you've got to up your game considerably. And I feel also that there are easier things that you can do, because it does involve money right from the word go. But if you're serious and you're dedicated, there's also lots of money out there. So if you've got a great idea, you can always find an investor. I know there's people that are going to say, "Oh, where?" but really, if you truly believe in what you're doing, I remember with my knitting business, different times, but I remember with my knitting business, getting a response on the squeaky jumpers and going in to see my bank manager and getting a loan for £40,000 unsecured as a single mum with 3 kids and no income. And that was absolutely down to my total belief in what I was doing.
That was a lot of money at those times.
A lot of money, and I don't think you do it now. Much harder now. But the point is, so much is about your self-belief and mindset. Mm-hmm. And my coaching is 50% mindset and 50% practical knowledge, which I, learned building my own businesses.
Well, that's, I think, what all of us need. The mindset is more important.
Yes, yeah. It really is. It really is.
Yeah, well, I know from most of our customers and clients and students that most of them, and perhaps that's the same with your clients, most of them start with as a hobby, just to have some relaxation after a hard day's work, or with the need to help somebody because they are frustrated with the crap on the market for their children, babies, friends, or for themselves. And then friends and family comes and takes the samples and are satisfied and are over the moon, and they encourage the ones that to make it more, or to create more, or to make it a business. And then when it comes to the business, most of them say, "Oh, I love the doing part, but I don't like the business part."
Yeah. It's running a business. So I run my VIP mentoring program. I've got various online click and buy courses, which people can buy to get into understanding what's involved when they're building a business. But my one-to-one is very much sort of hand-holding right from the beginning, right from the concept. And the first thing I will tell people is you need a completely different mindset to run a business than you do to make product. And I'd actually learned that by the time I started my soap making business. And whilst I'm a creative, so everything I do starts with, a passion. But when I decided to turn it into a business, and when I got investors, I made a decision not to make any soap anymore. Yeah. And so really conscious, when I started my knitting business, I stopped knitting. And that was because I could no longer do it as a hobby. There was too much hanging on it. And in order to run my business, I couldn't afford to do, my business could not afford to have me doing something that I could pay someone else a low wage to do. Yeah, because marketing and building a business require far more. Well, it's a job that pays an awful lot more
That's true.
than making product.
That's absolutely true. Yeah. Yeah, but
And I think that's the first thing that people need to take on board. So if you are thinking that you're going to have a nice little workshop and you want to do this because you love making product, don't. It will cost you too much. You won't see a return. You'll end up with a lot of product and no customers. If you decide that you want to build a business and you want to earn serious money, I mean, those are the people that I want as clients, because then I can, once they've let go of that emotional attachment to the craft, because if you think about it, you go on a course, and I'm sure your guys particularly, they'll learn to make all sorts of different products, and they'll want to experiment, and they'll want to use wonderful oils. When you're doing it for a business, you have to make commercial decisions about which oils you can use.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's it. You cannot go for a fanciful product that might disappear within a few years, or the supply chain would completely. Specifically these days, the supply chain is crazy. It's absolutely crazy.
I mean, if somebody wants to use, because a lot of my clients want to use some sort of rare or unique ingredient, and I will always say to them, before you include it, make sure you have 2 streams of supply for that one ingredient, at least 2. Someone comes to me with wanting some sort of seaweed gel that they've found on the shores of Scotland that a small cooperative is producing. Great. What happens if they go out of business? What happens if their harvest runs out?
Some of them don't go out of the business, but the supplier just stops creating because it's not affordable. It's not. It doesn't bring the profit that they want, and the whole world of business turns around profit. And we have had some ingredients who I really worked my back off to introduce them and to make tutorials, and people love them. And as we started leaping towards sales and selling more of that product, then boom, not anymore. So we had to stop.
You've got to cover yourself. You've got to make sure that you've got at least a couple of sources of supply. So it's I mean, the other thing that people tend not to understand is how to cost their products.
Absolutely.
They don't charge for their time.
Don't even think about the buffers of now. We see that the raw material prices are increasing like crazy. The shipping prices are increasing like crazy. Packaging material, everything, and I think most of them have such a narrow margin that with the slightest change they have to.
And I think the other thing is, because people, as you said, often want to do this because they want to help people. One thing that I often get is, I want my products to be accessible. I don't see why they're so expensive. But the point is this: if you've got to work out your margins, and you've got to charge what you've got to charge, and your responsibility is to build a sustainable business.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, it's not your business what other people will spend on a product, because if you think about it, if someone is really broke, or in debt or whatever, skincare products should be the last thing on their list anyway. They are luxury products by nature. And if your job is to create the best product that you can, offer the greatest value that you can, and value can be in how it makes someone feel, how they emotionally connect with it, who they feel they are when they it's all the emotional stories.
Absolutely.
And to sell it to those that understand the value and are.
Yeah, the value, exactly. And don't try to haggle about cents and pennies. Yeah, very wise. But I think the next question, you have already answered it, but I asked it, maybe you have another answer or another approach. What is, in your opinion, the most important needle mover from hobbyist and DIYer to business, parting from the emotional part of doing the things? What is that makes the difference between those who are still, after years and years, they think they have a business but they don't have it and are still a hobbyist with a very expensive hobby, and those who make it and become an entrepreneur?
I think being a good entrepreneur is a shedding process. And it's much, much easier to be running a big company than it is to be running a small company because of that. And I think the really important thing is that you are brutally honest with yourself and that you fully understand what you're good at and what you're not good at, and that you're prepared and have the resources initially to outsource everything, either that you can pay somebody a much lower price to do, or that you're not good at. So, I will get a lot of people coming to me with their think they've got their branding and they'll have done some sort of logo online or whatever. They haven't understood all the pieces that they need to live up, to before they even get to that point. And they'll think it's good enough, and they won't understand that, in this highly competitive market, graphic designers are trained to do designs. Go to somebody that knows what they do, which is, this is why I'm a mentor. I know what I'm doing here. If you're coming in cold, there are so many mistakes that you can make that can prove, I did it. They can prove hugely expensive. So get expert advice, free advice if you can get it, paid advice if you need it. But there's no reason why you should know this stuff.
Absolutely.
Go to people that do know this stuff. And the graphic design is absolutely key because they're looking at things differently to the way that you are.
Absolutely. Yeah. That's true. That's very wise. So then you have perhaps another recommendation for people who fill their shelves with very expensive ingredients and then start formulating or then start thinking about the selling process or making a business.
The first question you should ask yourself is, where can I sell this? Okay, because your business success, and so if you've watched any of my recordings, I say this over and over again, it depends on two or three principal things. The first is who you know. It's a tough old world out there. Who do you know? Mm-hmm. The second is, who are you? What are you putting into this brand? Authenticity sells. People buy from people. So you need to be really, really aligned with, your brand needs to be really, really aligned with who you are. And that will allow you to communicate a market with passion and with integrity. So, if you're a 60-year-old woman and you suddenly come up with an idea for doing a range for teenagers, forget it, unless you're going to have a teenage board of directors, because you ask anybody that's got a grandma, you don't talk the same language. You might think you do, but you really, really don't. So you want to be able to talk to your people. The other bit of advice is to niche right down and not try and be everything to everybody. So this is something that I run a brand message program, a very short brand message program. And, I had one woman come to me who are passionate about skincare, wants to make organic, wants to do plastic free, all these things. And in the conversation, I discovered that her passion and her life had been about horses. She had her own horses. She'd worked in show horse industry. Her whole life was about horses. So on the first call, I said, well, you're not going to do a skincare range. We're going to do a natural grooming range for horses. Mm-hmm. and it was like, why didn't I think of that? Because I think you're too,
Epiphany. Yeah.
yeah, you're just too close to see the obvious.
Yeah.
And sometimes you need someone like me to explain what the obvious is.
Yeah, I see that most people look at L'Oreal or Nivea right now, and they think they have all sort of price classes and all sort of products, and we have to do that right from the beginning. And they don't see that even L'Oreal has different brands for different price categories. So if you are selling a piece of soap for less than $1, you cannot sell the facial cream for $55. That's
Yeah. I mean, 3 to 5 products is perfect. You can do it with one if it's unique enough, but that is actually all you should even consider before you've verified and built your range. Because the other thing is that if you're lucky enough to get into major stores and your range is successful, they are constantly going to be on at you to introduce something new to keep the range fresh. So if you start with too many, apart from the fact
overwhelming, and the inventory would be crazy. Yeah, that's true. So you already have answered my next question. I was going to ask, how many products do people need to start? So you have already.
I would say, I've missed out a critical bit of advice, and that is that I think that if you're selling cosmetics is a numbers game. It really is a numbers game, and you should be considering going to a contract manufacturer. And a contract manufacturer is going to want quite a large minimum. I mean, I've just actually found some great outfit in China who only want 500, which is superb, but 3,000 is normal. So, to produce a range at those sort of price in your bottles and everything else, you're already into, I say on my 16-week program, I won't take on anyone unless they feel they can access at least £15,000 in their first year. Now, I think Formula Britannica say 50, but I believe in bootstrapping, and I have ways around that. But there really isn't. Building any business is going to cost you money or investment in a product business. So don't imagine that you can completely grow organically from nothing. I suppose you can, but it's going to take 5 or 6 years before you get a salary out of it.
Absolutely, yeah. Okay. So I think I have had asked enough or took enough of your time. I have thousands of other questions, but I know how valuable your time is. And this is what I personally recommend people do not. Well, it is good to invest in this course and that course and certification, but as long as you don't know how to sell and you don't know how to run a business, it's all useless, or it remains a hobby. Another question that I want to ask is, I see it with our customers that they become crazy and think if they get this certification and that certification and that certification for the products, it will sell, and they go in a hamster wheel of getting certifications and collecting documents. And what is your advice on that?
Well, I as someone that's never been certified in anything, I've got to say that look, I truly believe that quality sells. I absolutely believe that you've got to have a great product, but you don't need someone to tell you you've got a great product. If you do, then you shouldn't be in business or even considering it. And I think providing you have a great product, and you understand it and targeted it very much to the audience that you feel you should be reaching, and you've gone through all the pieces to make it a sustainable business. I don't see that you need. I mean, I don't even have O levels. It's. But I'm the best at what I do, and I always drive to be the best at whatever I'm going to do. I'm absolutely going to be the best at it. And I think if you can go in with that attitude and not cut corners, but not be too much of a perfectionist either, it's all about action. It really is. It's all about action, taking action.
I am so relieved you said that. It's my own opinion, and I get mad at people who really just start and run after certifications and think the certification is the solution to all of their business problems. That's great. Melinda, thank you so much.
You're very welcome.
It is really helpful for me and for all of my audience, I'm sure. And I hope I can come back to you. People who are watching this, instead of investing in any ingredients or any new certifications, first go for a coaching session to Melinda and then start working on your products. Thank you for your time.
Right. They can check out my website at melindacoss.com, and there's a number of different low cost and high cost programs there. There's a big masterclass which covers everything, and then there's the branding. It depends where you're at, really. But check out my website, and if you don't know what to do, contact me and talk to me. Other websites, just melindacoss.com.
I will mention all your details in the description with the link to your LinkedIn profile and your website, and I think everybody can easily find you.
Don't teach me.
There is one and only Melinda Coss in the world.
Oh, thank you. It's probably a good job.
I'm sure. Thank you so much. I love you. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.